Faisal and I am animal trainer. If anything paranormal or related to spirits happens, animals sense it immediately. I was sitting upstairs working on my website around 6 p.m., visiting a friend's house. I saw this spot and asked, "Hey, this plot looks very old, right?" They had a plan to build a swimming pool there. When I asked, they said the plot owner didn't want to cut down the trees since they were very old. In the morning, I was sitting, looking around, and imagining what we could build here. Suddenly, 4 or 5 street dogs rushed past. I saw them running and heard voices. At first, I thought someone was calling. I stayed quiet and listened. Then, where I stood, in front of this plot, there's a shed. Now, whenever I pass by an alley and see a cage or shed, I can guess which animal might be there. Those goats started crying out. They kept crying continuously, and the noise got so intense. The street was silent except for that noise. I went and one of my friend down there, "Hey, isn't it loud here?" He replied, "What noise?" I told him I'd made a video. He wasn't convinced. Then, a few days later, he came to my house at around 2:30 a.m. and said, "Let's go, it's happening again. The chickens are crying, all the animals are panicking." He took me back, and I waited to see if something would happen. The early morning light had that post-rain feeling, soft and muted. Lights were on. And suddenly, a disturbing noise started. The odd thing was, if you looked down the street, it was silent, except for that noise. Same situation is still there. My name is Aiden. I love to visit paranormal places, and through social media, I often share my experiences. A female messaged me about a house they bought but soon wanted to leave, claiming strange things happened there. She told me, please warn others not to buy it. Some days later, she messaged again, asking why I hadn't mentioned the house. I asked for a picture of the front of the house to inspect, but she didn't have one. She later sent a clearer picture, showing windows and doors shaking like in an earthquake. I told her to check if it was just her place or if it was happening elsewhere too. She even mentioned that knives sometimes fell down on her own. This was only after 2 weeks of them being there. Due to my busy schedule, I was not able to visit this place, but this situation still not resolved. I hope I will visit this house because many people did not like people like us because they think if people like me visit the house then the house will be made notorious, so it should be difficult to sold out house in the future because no one want to buy such house that have strange noises. My name is Cashin and I related to construction industry. Once, we were building a farmhouse. When we set up the water line, people from the neighboring house started chatting and helping out. One day, we looked at the plot layout. There were 2 rooms on the left and another opposite the gate. They had tanks, fountains, and a big pond in front. The neighbor suggested we inspect it for safety since the area was isolated. Kids played around, and one day a ball fell into the tank. A boy went down to retrieve it, acting like it was no big deal, but for them, it was completely normal. All the children ran outside, leaving behind 3 of their friends. These boys were from classes 9 and 10. While the younger kids who ran away were from classes 6, 7, and 8. Shezad was also with the older boys. One of the boys climbed down into the tank, as if it was a completely normal thing. He descended, and after a moment, 3 or 4 kids came out from below and ran outside. I watched as Shezad also came out and went outside, but when he had run out the first time, he was wearing a gray outfit. Now, he sat down in a corner of the tank. Another boy named Kaleem, who came down after everyone had already exited, asked, "Are you sure Shezad came out earlier?" When Kaleem looked inside, he found Shezad still sitting there, seemingly oblivious to everyone. Then, as we watched from the edge, Shezad climbed out of the tank in a strange way and ran out. Wherever he stepped, there was fog or steam rising, as if his feet were so hot they were evaporating the water. I asked, "How is he here again?" One boy removed his sandals and ran off toward the street to his home. I felt like someone or something was still watching us. Everyone who saw Shezad outside assumed it was the same boy as before. Even when we went back to the tank, we saw his body lying there. He was dead, even though it seemed like he had already left. One person came and confirmed that this wasn't the first time strange incidents happened in that area. I asked, "Why do children come here to play in the evening?" But this person replied, "There are no children that play here." Kaleem told me, "We only have a group of 4 kids who play here." I felt strange, wondering who else we'd been seeing all along. I later shared this with my friend Farouk and his father, but they dismissed it, thinking it was just imagination. I told him the tank was still there, but I hadn't gone back, as my work there was finished. That place still has a strange vibe, and I wouldn't recommend leaving empty plots unattended. Strange things seem to happen there. My name is Karen. I have a girlfriend and she often felt as if something was watching her constantly, and at times, it even felt like someone was sitting beside her. We tried to reassure her, but her fear only grew. She wasn't coming to meet me for some days. It wasn't the age of mobile phones, and we didn't have one, so she just wasn't coming. Her friend, the older one, she was there, and for 3 or 4 days, she came and told us she was unwell, had a fever, and that some spiritual charm had affected her and she was quite unwell. And after 2 months, she came. She came from a distance, and she had a style. She looked thin, worn out, and asked, "What happened?" She told me, "Never advise anyone again to challenge unknown creature to show itself." I asked, "Why?" She told me that they went to a place for education at a seminary. At night, she woke up to pray. She was disturbed by a feeling, uneasiness. She laid out her prayer mat and was about to step on it. She felt very scared and called out, "Whoever is there, just come out." After praying, she folded the corner of the prayer mat, and there was blood underneath. Just blood. She thought maybe it was just in her mind. She tried to shake it off but kept seeing the blood. It got deeper. She turned away and fainted right there. She said it felt like blood was being thrown on her, repeatedly, and she couldn't shake it off. She said it felt like, if I was completely covered by it, I would die. She was trembling with fear, shivering, and lying there unconscious. She doesn't know for how long, but when morning came, they took her and recognized her condition. They identified it as not something natural. They took her for spiritual treatment, did rituals to heal her, and she recovered. She said, "I won't advise anyone again." If they confront it, this is what happens. My name is Liam. I was in someone's house, and this person has mounted beautiful Himalayan ibex horns in his room. Now, we're sitting there at night, watching a horror movie. This movie was intense, the kind we enjoy. They showed the actual lives of corpse washers, asking questions like, what really happens? They'd even ask the deceased, brother, can you help us out a bit? Are you uncomfortable or what? We were watching it, and it was pretty intense. We had connected the laptop to the speaker, but it kept disconnecting every time we paused. One of the guys had to get up, so we paused. I was sitting in the middle, one friend on this side, one on that. It got quiet, and we heard faint noises. Suddenly, from behind that friend's bed, there was a faint tick-tock sound. And right above his bed, he had mounted a trophy, the head of a moon bear that had been sacrificed, cleaned, and mounted, staring directly at you. Our friend got freaked out. I told him, look, even the movie is paused at the scary part, right where a terrifying woman appears. When he went to grab something to drink, there was complete silence. Suddenly, we heard a noise from above, like a knocking sound. We assumed it was the solar panels, but the sound kept coming. He looked up and got pale, even though he's not the kind of guy who scares easily. He covered himself with a blanket, saying, I feel like it's watching me. If a regular person was in this situation, without any idea there was a huge skull mounted above, watching a horror movie in this atmosphere, they'd probably have a heart attack right there. So yeah, watching horror movies sometimes brings these situations. I am Isel and I am animal trainer. Some people might not believe that I actually put my hand in the tiger's mouth. They'd either think I'm bluffing or lying. It's just like when I was at the gym, and a young boy who just joined started giving me advice on bodybuilding techniques. So, one of the boy's friends, who was my classmate, told him about my tickets to an famous singer concert. The kid became so excited that he kept visiting my house, asking for the ticket. Eventually, I told him to stop coming, but he wouldn't listen. One day, I showed the kid a huge python I had, and his reaction was priceless. He'd told his family and friends, who had all mocked his father, these are funny stories. But there's a certain reality. In the animal world, people only believe you when they experience things for themselves. In terms of skills, we have a lot, be it riding, animal training, shooting, but we never brag. Those who don't have these skills are usually the ones who do the talking. Then there are people who deal in dark practices, who avoid meeting others to keep a low profile. One guy in my network does this work professionally and avoids people because even a slight interaction can bring negativity onto him. It's about energy, whether positive or negative. Some people naturally attract certain situations, animals feel comfortable around them, and others just attract different types of energy.